When Stuntman was released for the PlayStation 2 and Game Boy Advance in 2002, it was certainly a unique driving game. Developed by Reflections, who are mostly known for the Driver and Destruction Derby franchises, taking inspiration from films like Hooper, in which the plot focused on those behind the camera, performing stunts for films where you had to perform whatever the director ordered at the last possible second. Even though it received mixed reviews in 2002, mostly thanks to its brutal difficulty, it's certainly one of the hardest games I've reviewed and completed on this channel. It's gotten more appreciation over the last few years because of its originality. Every completed take is an incredibly satisfying one. There was a lot of variety because of all the different films you worked on and the type of vehicles you got to drive. Definitely a recommendation, one of the most underrated on the PS2. It sold over 1 million copies, so for a side project to essentially learn how next generation hardware works while developing their main event, it was at least commercially successful enough to deserve a sequel. The first mention of a follow-up to Stuntman was at the Tokyo Game Show in 2005, and according to IGN, Sony themselves confirmed that Atari were developing a sequel for the yet-to-be-released PlayStation 3, being one of 102 games being made for that system at that time. It was almost never mentioned when Atari were talking about their plans for the PS3 apart from Alone in the Dark. What still wasn't known yet was that it was going to be developed by Paragon Entertainment, which should be a familiar name if you had a Nintendo 64 growing up, developing Pilot Wings 64, F1 World Grand Prix, and Beetle Adventure Racing for that console. And going into the next generation, they were part of the Infogrames spending spree, being acquired by them for $19.7 million, but spent most of their time developing movie tie-ins including Mission Impossible and Terminator 3. But after Infogrames, rebranded as Atari, hit financial issues around the same time, they began a half-decade-long fire sale of almost every developer and franchise they bought only just a few years ago. And on May 2006 at E3, THQ announced they acquired the Stuntman IP, and Paragon Entertainment essentially confirming they were the developers of this new follow-up. And in February 2007, they announced follow-ups to a lot of their profitable franchises, including Red Faction, Saints Row, Juiced, and Stuntman Ignition, which was released for the PlayStation 2, 3, and Xbox 360 on August that same year. We're looking at the 360 version since it's backwards compatible with the Series X. Can't believe how handy this console has been in making reviews lately. But because there's no PC version, this is theoretically the best way to play this game by today's standards.
Okay, this is not Avenger's first big action scene. Don't let the fans down. Don't let me down.
Like the first game, you're a stuntman working for multiple action films involving dangerous stunts. 6 films with 6 stunts each, 7 if you get the Director's Cut DLC, which is surprisingly still available on the Xbox store, and a few odd jobs and commercials, a bit like the stunt shows in the first game, a side distraction from the films, but completely optional.
Under another semi!
The good thing about setting it as if you're in the role of someone who works in movies, it gives you a good excuse to enter multiple genres and settings in one go. This game has a ton of variety, the type of films you perform, lots of different type of films, like you're literally driving around volcano lava, next thing you're driving a monster truck through a barn, a truck carrying a missile, a Camaro around the streets of San Francisco, an Aston Martin on Iceberg Cliff, and the Nightmobile through skyscrapers. And it's completely plausible.
Hit the action button. Jump through the gap.
But unlike the first game, which starts you off with a smaller budget film, and each passing film you work on gets more and more expensive, culminating in stunt work for a James Bond film, a Simon Crown film. In Stuntman Ignition, you're already working for what is already a super high budget film from the get-go, and it takes itself less seriously.
Hit the action button. Close to the explosion. Jump in the helicopter.
While the first game, it has that setting of being a real-life stuntman trying to explain the dangers of the profession with the level of excitement that can rival a typical Sunday church session in the cutscenes. Very quiet.
And your favorite stunt? Well, that's always the next one you do.
Being developed by Reflections, that's how they always presented their cutscenes, very empty and hollow. It was trying to create as realistic of a setting as possible is what I'm saying. Whereas Stuntman Ignition is insanely cartoony by comparison.
Anyway, lots of my fans still think I do my own stunts, so you better be good. I got a reputation to protect.
When you enter the main menu for the first time, you'd almost be forgiven you think you accidentally put in flat out Ultimate Carnage. It's so very early 7th generation. And the films you work for in this game, the satires are more blatant, including the directors you work with for each film. They're parodies themselves.
Hey kid, Howard Reitman. Look, you know who I am? That's my wall of fame. Work with everyone. Tell him, Jack.
Mr. Reitman's been directing since '67. He's incredible.
They call him Mr. Hollywood.
Thanks, Sarah. You're a doll.
And handsome.
Enough, Sarah. Jack, coffee,
Yes,
and
sir.
ring Murphy at Pyramid.
Yes, sir.
Sarah, go with him.
Got it.
What is she?
Anyway, you've heard of Night Avenger, right? Huge comic book. Well, we're making that.
I can imagine this is how conversations for making superhero films are like this in real life today.
We're gonna go big with this one. We might as well even just call the movie Super Big and Awesome, but it's not gonna fit on a poster, okay? Alright, you're gonna be doubling for our hero Stone, okay? Alright, now I want you guys to be tough, but not leather tough. Like steel chainmail tough, okay? You get where I'm going with this? Hey, what do you want, a mint, a sandwich, something like that? Can we get this guy a sandwich?
You think this is a spiritual successor to Stuntman rather than a direct sequel, but since you're working on fictional sequels to A Whoopin' and a Hollerin and Live Twice for Tomorrow, at least it still connects with the first Stuntman and has the director cues, crew members in the background with cameras and tall chairs supervising the sets, so it continues to give the illusion of being part of a film. Again, just more cartoony by comparison. And it applies to the gameplay, which is a lot more arcade focused. You're still doing long takes with director cues thrown in there, including drift turns, action buttons, being close to explosions, all in a time limit, and all choreographed in a way so when you look at the replays, the results speak for themselves. The replays don't really get a good shot at the action, it only stays on the player, like watching a replay of a racing game rather than having the camera angles like a movie scene. And why not moments of dialogue like you're watching a movie, not just a standard replay? I know this is technically a recorded take, not the complete edited final scene. I'm honestly overthinking it, I just reckon it would be a really cool idea. And then again, in the Oddjob commercials, there is dialogue for those scenes.
The new Venus Vexation with 850 horsepower, dual GPS navigation, titanium body structure, and bulletproof glass will make even a superhero jealous with envy.
Anyway, the way you complete these tanks has been altered to make the entire game a lot easier. Unlike Stuntman, where by the time you reach near the end of the game, you had to hit at least 90% of all the director cues, basically one mistake even if you clear the rest of the take without falling too far behind. You do it all over again with certain cues being more important than others, which affect the percentage. In Stuntman Ignition, you have a strike system where no matter what, you have 5 chances, so too many you instantly fail the take. And you also have a point system and a combine multiplier that reminds me of Kudos in Project Gotham Racing or skill points in Forza Horizon. That if you keep performing something non-stop, whether it's drifting or driving close to something or a director's cue, it keeps the combo going. And the higher the score, the more stars you earn, so technically you can pass these stunts with any number of stars. But you need a certain number to unlock other film projects and keep advancing through the career mode. To get better film opportunities, you need excellent stunts to show for it. It was hard to understand at first, especially when I played it for the first time way back in the late 2000s on my friend's PlayStation 2 with even less experience. Side note, based on what I experienced when playing the PS2 version back when it was relatively new back then, it's mostly the same game as the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions. Anyway, it felt like no matter what I did, the best I could get was 3 stars, but it was mostly 2. I couldn't make it further than the third film, Overkill, and just moved on. And going back into this game over a decade later, I thought with the experience of completing the first game, I thought Stuntman Ignition would be a doddle. And in some ways, it was, by comparison anyway. Although at first, I wonder why I was still averaging between 2 to 3 stars no matter how perfect my takes felt. Then I went to the next film, 5 stars for everyone.
The rest of this movie could suck.
It probably will.
But it won't even matter, because that was perfect!
Get on, man.
Whoa!
I mean, why? Is it the director? Well, if you look at the top left of the screen, going back to the combo system, the key is to keep that combo going while hitting the director's stunt cues all the way to the end of a take.
Overtake left. Overtake right. Hard left. Pass close to the explosion.
Once I realized you had to string it to get 5 stars, then it all made sense.
Into the barn. Smash through the window.
I realized with the levels you film on, they're designed so there's always a way to keep that combo going. Like there always seems to be a barrel or box on the side to conveniently drive close to, or a corner so you can drift around it.
Take out the motorcycle. Hit the action button. Hit the dune buggy. Pass under the silo. Press left.
It might look completely hectic if you're watching gameplay of this for the first time with all the explosions, bodies flying everywhere, and the director yelling out cues seemingly out of nowhere like a rally game. You find yourself trying to figure where you're meant to be driving. It's very trial and error. Once you learn how to get around one cue, next thing it throws another fireball at you, literally in some cases. Fortunately, because the budget for all of these films are $1 billion each, you get infinite tries. I can only imagine how expensive and time consuming it would be to put everything back together just to do another take over and over again. But once you begin to develop the reflexes and level memorization, it can be a pretty rewarding experience trying to clear these takes flawlessly.
Hit the jump. Smash the construction beams. Drift turn right. Through the gap.
It's hard to tell whether the vehicle controls are better or worse because on one hand it feels floatier, maybe because it wasn't developed by Reflections, in which the first Stuntman and Driver 3 used the same game engine, where cars had better physics and you could feel the weight of them move around as you corner and bounce on jumps. It's weird how you can tell that a sequel is made by a different developer just on the way it controls. But on the other hand, almost never did I feel like the vehicle let me down on a stunt. They're less likely to roll over on landings, you have control in mid-air. And only rarely does the game throw something random that ruins the tank beyond your control, whether it's a chase car driving too slowly or an exploding prop getting in the way, for example. There are a couple of tutorials thrown in the middle of these film shoots to learn moves that I honestly need the tutorial for.
But master it, and you'll really start turning heads in the industry.
Like the barrel roll or driving on two wheels. I'll never forget how long it took me just to learn how to do the latter properly back when I was playing this on the PS2. And the films you shoot for are perfect for stunts where you drive some of the most muscle-pumping machines in a video game. Some vehicles are made for bulldozing through everything, and other for precise slides and handling to go through close call after close call. It is satisfying to slide around and dodge other vehicles, seeing everything surrounding you explode in a fully choreographed spectacle where a tiny mistake can throw the entire take into jeopardy. This game is a memory test deep down.
Smash the sign. The police cars. Jump the logs. Jump into the tower. Hit the police car.
The most frustrating thing is seeing that combo meter fade away so quickly if your goal is to earn 5 stars on every take. But it's the right kind of frustrating that every time I restart, I'm always like, one more try. No, come on, one more try. Just constantly telling myself not to stop until I strung that entire combo. I know it's possible.
Hit the action button. Die shivering and frightened and alone, but that stunt will live forever.
But even with that said, again, it could be because I paid my dues with the first Stuntman. Stuntman Ignition is a lot easier than the first game overall once you know exactly how to earn 5 stars. It provides more margin for error, you're allowed to run over the camera crew if they just happen to be in the way, there's more room to drive around, less to put you to a complete stop, everything is more colourful and gives you a clearer indication where arrows point and where the director cues are at the last possible second, as well as the vehicle controls being a lot more forgiving. There's a lot less to stop you immediately, it gives you more of a chance to keep the combo going even for a tiny mistake. Not like the first Stuntman where by the time you got to the last couple of films you had to be perfect just to pass it. And because Reflections developed it, everything can easily put you to a complete stop, whether it's the physics of the car not playing ball, a lamppost, corner of a building. One slip up is an instant failure. Again, it's right up there as one of the hardest games I've ever completed. But here, there are moments where sometimes it's more beneficial to ignore the director's cue and get across if you know you can string that combo, since the number of strikes you accumulate in a tank doesn't affect the number of stars you earn. In fact, you can literally fail the final money shot, as you can see. This was the last stunt in the entire game, by the way, and I still got 5 stars.
Cut! I should make this into 2 movies, and one will just be you driving around doing stunts, because that was intense!
The only thing about the difficulty I don't like is how inconsistent it is. Going back to what I said about the first film, Aftershock, I found it harder to earn 5 stars on some of those stunts than something like Night Avenger, the last film in the career mode, where there are more props to stay close to, which make it easier to keep that combo going. And because the odd jobs don't have a strike system at all, I consider them harder to complete than the film stunts. Trying to go under the moving trucks while smashing every ice block in between is something I never want to do again. It's quickly worth noting with these arenas you can create your own stunt shows with smashable props, jumps and vehicles, which are all unlocked when completing the film stunts. And it's better than the first game, in which you can place a hell of a lot more objects. I just wish nearly everything didn't have to be locked despite a solid stuntman resume. Anyway, even with that said, each stunt, no matter how hard, took me about 10 to 15 minutes of trial, error and reactions to pull it off, since most takes take no longer than a minute. Whereas the first game would take half an hour just to pass a take, and needed a break from the rest of the day because it's that mentally exhausting. This is why you'll never see me play a Souls game on this channel, for example. The thought of being in a boss battle makes me feel tired.
Pass close to the explosion. Straight the truck. Since I was behind the wheel.
Unfortunately, despite Stuntman Ignition being one of THQ's best sellers of 2007 with over 1 million copies sold, it was still below expectations commercially. And on the verge of hitting a similar financial turmoil as Atari SA, THQ cut their losses by cancelling sequels of unknown franchises, including a couple of unannounced titles, or Destroyed All Humans, Frontlines, and Stuntman, with developers Paradigm Entertainment becoming expendable in the process, folding just a year later, along with THQ themselves filing for bankruptcy in 2013. And that was it, really. We haven't seen another Stuntman title since then, and it's honestly very unlikely we will. And it's such a shame, because the idea of being a stuntman performing different moves and cues at the right time. I've always really liked that type of gameplay focused on memorization and trial and error, with so much happening on screen, guaranteed to give you an adrenaline rush with every attempt. So the best thing we can hope for really is a spiritual successor, and I certainly hope it arrives sooner than later. Because I consider this another underrated gem that's definitely worth trying at least once, even if it can be frustrating sometimes. Between the two, this one is better for players new to the franchise, being more arcade focused than the first game. I know in this review I made it almost sound like it's a bad game. I can assure you it's not, just really hard is all. But Ignition is the one to start with, then this one if you want a bigger challenge.
Smash through the window. Menagerie in my house, and I'm gonna keep you in it, so when my friends come over I can say, look friends, I have captured awesome.
Thanks everyone on Patreon, including Anthony Costins, Bibbs, Brittleback, Cooper Munn, Darcy McIntosh, Emmanuel Figueroa, Atmosphere, Indie DM, Alan Craft, Night Kid Gaming, Oscar, Peter GT, Roman Arteminov, Ruben Perkolk, Sam Sneed, Tickford45, Thomas Rosendale, UZ Racer, Will Stokes, and everyone watching this review. Spenny out, and cut.